Hi, everyone. This is the third week in Easter. During Easter, we are celebrating the joy of Jesus' resurrection. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus later appeared to his disciples along the shore of Lake Tiberias. Simon Peter, Thomas the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, and the two sons of Zebedee were there, together with two other disciples. Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." The others said, "We'll go with you." And they went out in their boat. But they didn't catch a thing that night. Early the next morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize who he was. Jesus shouted, "Friends, have you caught anything?" "No," they answered. So he told them, "Let your net down on the right side of your boat and you will catch some fish." They did, and the net was so full of fish that they could not drag it up into the boat. Jesus' favorite disciple told Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon heard it was the Lord, he put on the clothes he had taken off while he was working. Then he jumped into the water. The boat was only about 100 yards from shore. So the other disciples stayed in the boat and dragged in the net full of fish. When the disciples got out of the boat, they saw some bread and a charcoal fire with fish on it. Jesus told his disciples, "Bring some of the fish you just caught." Simon Peter got back into the boat and dragged the net to shore. In it were 153 large fish, but the net did not rip. Jesus said, "Come and eat." But none of the disciples dared ask who he was. They knew he was the Lord. Jesus took the bread in his hands and gave some of it to his disciples. He did the same with the fish. This was the third time that Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. The Gospel of the Lord. In this week's Gospel, we experience the mystery of the resurrection with the disciples again. This reading reminds us of another story about Jesus' disciples. It starts with his disciples after a long night of fishing and catching nothing. It must have been really frustrating to spend all night and have nothing. But at the same time, Jesus came to them and told them to put their nets on the other side of the boat. And when they did, their nets were so full of fish, they could barely pull them up. When this happened, they decided to follow Jesus. This time, nearly the same thing happened. Jesus came to them after a long night of fishing and having caught nothing. Again, they were probably tired and frustrated. Again, Jesus told them to put their nets on the other side, and again their nets were full of fish. Peter immediately recognized Jesus and jumped over the side of the boat to swim to shore to see him. He just didn't want to wait to see him. Would you have been as excited to see Jesus to jump over the side of the boat right away and swim to shore? It's interesting that Jesus came to his disciples in the same way as he did before. Maybe that was to help them recognize it was him. Maybe it was because something they were supposed to learn the first time and they still needed to be reminded. Maybe it's because Jesus comes to us in certain patterns. After that, they had breakfast on the beach, cooking a few fish that they had caught and having bread. Again, Jesus did something similar to what he had done before. He broke bread and shared it with them. It reminded the disciples of the Last Supper and maybe also all of the times they had eaten together. Again, the disciples immediately recognized the pattern. Do we pay enough attention to the patterns of how God comes to us? Are there some lessons we still need to learn from God to recognize him and learn what we're supposed to learn the first time? If Jesus came to you today, how would you know it was him?